All right, so let's go back again, share screen. All right, so we are talking about the second unit in the information systems class, and we're looking at the role of IS in organizations. So there are a number of objectives you can read at your leisure since you have access to the slide. We're going to start off by looking at the functions in a business, which include manufacturing and production, sales and marketing, finance and accounting, and human resources. And this slide just shows you these. Any business at all must have a product or a service or both. And basically have, if it's a service business, you might not have manufacturing. You typically have 4 or more functions in a business that basically make the business work. And in addition to that, you have suppliers, customers, employees, some kind of way of getting money, as well as the products and services that are important for the business. And every organization, nonprofit and profit-based business, will have a set of logical tasks that together are called business processes. And one example of a business process is hiring an employee. Another one in marketing is identifying customers. So that's one functional area. Fulfilling a customer order is cross-sectional. It takes more than one of these. Go back. Hello, can you please mute yourself? Like we had these 4 functional areas. Some business processes only in one functional area, and some is in more than one. So we're going to show an example of how fulfilling a customer order is cross-functional. So for example, here's the order fulfillment process. It depends on the business. This is one example. It could be in a place that's manufacturing something that they're selling. The sales team are going to generate the order and submit the order. Then it goes to the account department. If it's going to be by credit, check if the person has credit to approve it, to generate an invoice. Once the credit is approved, then the company will assemble and ship the product. So it's 3 different departments just for order fulfillment. And you can use computer systems to enhance business process. They can automate it. So you just change a manual process to automated. You can change the way in which data flows in order to create information. You can make it so that things that used to be step by step happens at the same time simultaneously. You can transform how the business will work. If you look at the business process and said, this could happen better. And you could decide that you want to change the entire way in which the business operates in new business models. We had talked about some business models last week. For example, Apple as a company really is one of the many companies. But if you think about it, Facebook and Google, many of the computing firms are new business models. Even Amazon, lots of companies use IT to completely change how the world does some particular thing. So we can think about the people who work in a company in a hierarchy. So the typical hierarchy is senior management, middle management, operational management. That's in order of the manager workers. And then the people who are not management can typically be in 3 groups: the knowledge workers, the data workers, and the production or service workers. So the knowledge workers is what you all are or want to be. So people who require specialized knowledge, like not only physicians and engineers and teachers, but also computer specialists, also architects, also anybody who either needs to study or learn a lot of things to do what they do. Data workers would include the data entry clerks that work at, what are those installed again? Those, there's one around the corner from my house. Can't remember the name of it. You know, that basically all they do is put in data entry. And then there are a number of workers in service or production. Like, for example, if you work at a factory, essentially you're not a knowledge worker, you're just on the factory floor, you're a production worker. Or you could be in a service sector and you're at a mart selling thing, you're a service worker. That's a lot of people as well. So all of these groups of people, whether you're managers or workers, need different kinds of information, and good computerized information systems will be designed to do that well. So this is showing the same thing I said about the managers in a slideshow. So the senior managers, the middle managers tend to be grouped in terms of the information system with the science and knowledge workers, and the operational managers in terms of data needs tend to be grouped with the production and service workers and the data workers. So because the middle managers tend to manage these people and the operational managers tend to manage these people. In very sophisticated firms, perhaps the information system may give the same kind of data control to these groups of people. And similarly here, it depends on the firm though. So you have to think also about the business environment. So there's a global environment, science and technology, economy, politics, international change. And then there is the immediate environment, the customers, suppliers, competitors, regulations of the context where you're in, and the stockholders. And so this diagram just shows the same thing we just mentioned before, where the organization must think about its customers, but not only the customers and the stockholders. They must think about the competitors for obvious reasons. If you have good relationship with your suppliers, you're more likely to succeed. You must think about the regulations or you might be kicked off the business. I saw a business news last night where the marijuana business, people were not meeting regulations and they destroyed all those plants. Clearly, regulations are pretty important. So even though they were saying that the regulations need to change, regulations are something to consider. And then aside from these things, you always need to think what's happening in the economy, in the business right now, given COVID. What's happening in the economy, it makes a difference. What's happening in terms of breaking science and technology, what's happening in terms of politics, international change, all of these things obviously affect the business environment. So in this context now, we have a number of different information systems that can meet an organizational needs. There's a transaction processing system, which is which every business, if it's at a manual, needs TPSs. So the TPS keeps track of basic activities, and it's not just for financial transactions. So earlier we mentioned like hiring an employee was a business process. And we mentioned several other business processes. Can anybody tell me any business process that would need a TPS? Don't all speak at once. I'm waiting for somebody to make a suggestion of a business process in an organization or a business that would require, in your opinion, a transaction processing system, as in a software system that would help the business manage that part better. Are you hearing me? What's the answer?
Finances.
Finances is vague. What finances, sir?
Certain transactions that the company would go through. What if the company...
I don't know what you mean by certain transaction. Could you be more specific, please?
What if the company is a car manufacturing company and they have to pay for imports and exports, and that's a way of transaction? And if they continue to do it like manual...
Okay, so let's just stop right there. So good. So your transaction is essentially the supply chain. So he's saying that the purchases on the supply chain of the, I think you're what, producing cars? Whatever. So apparently his is really fancy. So he's actually a car manufacturer. And so you're going to bring in all these parts, and that's the transaction. And yes, that would be an example of a transaction processing system. Can somebody give me an example that is not a financial transaction processing system?
Miss, would transactions that involve e-commerce like Amazon would be different, or would be more of the same?
Give me something with Amazon that doesn't involve a financial transaction that is a TPS, because actually Amazon has a lot of transactions that are not financial. That would be an example. Let's see who here either uses Amazon enough to answer my question.
Well, I would say like, all right, when you like, when a customer like buys a good after Amazon, suppose you're like buying like 3 different laptops for some reason, and like you want to get and when you place those orders, each of those orders is going to one location.
Mhm.
And then you're going to buy another set of laptops from a different brand. Like you buy 3 different HP laptops and buy 3 different Dell laptops.
Mhm.
And both of those are separately, and both of them have to go to like different, yeah, exactly, shipping. Both of them are going to like different locations. So one's going to one location and one's going to another location. You're going to have to need a system like the TPS to keep track of that transaction specifically, because if the case were like the shipping of those laptops for some reason gets delayed, or I don't know, God forbid, get destroyed somehow, then the customer needs to get a refund, or
So
Amazon
hold
needs
on.
to send
You're
them again.
getting way too complicated. So basically, right now you're talking about. Let's go with the first example. The example is really tracking. So order tracking.
Well, it's tracking.
No. Hold on. I'm trying to get you to give me an example. If you want to give me more than one example, the first example I hear, trying to get a TPS. The first one I hear is order tracking. Is there something else? Maybe there's another one which is shipping. I'm actually trying to follow what your example is, but you're giving me a whole long, complicated thing. Trust me,
Well,
you
I'm
actually
just
are.
saying, when it transferring resources to a customer, you just need something to track. If the customer receives it, and if you're doing it in bulk, you need to keep track of all the items being sent. If you understand.
All right. So I would say that the shipping process, whatever you want to call that, is a TPS, and the tracking is a TPS. And if there's some kind of, as you're saying, you're saying a third thing, refund policy system. I don't even know what that is. That could actually be a TPS too. But you were giving me several different things that are all different. Would seem to me to be different transaction processing systems to me. I'm not sure how they organize it. But Daniel has some things in the chat. So she says shipping for that example. I agree with her. And she said reservations to hotel, right? Reservations, it doesn't have any money. That's an excellent example, Daniel. Thanks for that. COVID-19 exposure systems. Please explain what you mean by that. I don't know what that means.
On the new update on iOS, you can turn it on and you have encrypted like keys being sent around to each other, and they tell if somebody comes up positive with COVID-19, it tells the other people who are around them that's in a certain amount of time.
You mean contact tracing then?
Yeah.
Exposure. So what you're talking about?
That's what it's called in iOS 14.
Is that Apple?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I see. Sorry, I actually have public health training, and I think the word in public health, it's called contract tracing. I'm happy that Apple calls it exposure.
Yeah, that one there.
I don't know. After hearing it, I never knew that Apple called it exposure systems, but interesting. Also, it basically notifies you based on the people that you're exposed to, that you should take some precautions.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that would be a TPS as well. And just since I know something a little bit about Amazon, for example, even when people like make an assessment of items they've bought, what about again, like rating or ranking or whatever, those things are also TPSs. So hiring an employer is a transaction processing system. Student application is a TPS. So the point is, we all have transaction processing systems, and yes, they can either be manual or automated, as the gentleman who was talking about the automobile manufacturing was saying earlier. So I think we can have some good idea. Everybody in the class is full of ideas, and even the ones who are not talking, I think, understand the basic idea behind this. So a little bit more sophisticated are systems for business intelligence. So you have everything from management information systems, which basically just pulls the data from the GPS and makes reports and exception reports. And then there are decision support systems, which helps managers make good decisions. It doesn't make decisions for them. And as this thing says, there are executive support systems that help senior managers make good decisions. So, so this is us going through what we said already. Transfer processing systems, but we didn't say this. It's for operational managers. Remember, we talked about 3 types: the operational, the middle managers, and the senior managers. The TPS is actually there for everybody, but the people who look at them the most will be the operational managers, because it answers routine questions or routine things that we expect people to look at. And so you have things like inventory, granting credit to customers, all the basic stuff for the company, and it produces information for other information systems. It's central to the functioning of the business. So an example of a transaction processing system is in payroll, where you have the employee stuff. It goes to a payroll system, makes management reports, and then because you pay taxes to the government, there's a report, not just the money, there's also a report given to government agencies about, in Jamaica, we have to pay income tax and NIS and various different kind of taxes. I don't know all of them right now. And obviously there's going to be a generation of either electronic or physical paycheck in addition to actual money going to the bank. So all this has to happen. So management information is a step up where it takes all the information from the transaction processing system and send it to the middle manager to help to monitor firm performance so the firm can hopefully perform better. It's going to, in the best case scenario, generate regular results that the managers will need weekly, monthly, annually, and if it's well designed, the people should be able to drill down into details as needed. Typically though, management information systems are not so flexible and doesn't typically have a lot of analytical capabilities. But by the way, more and more these days, there's some management information systems that have some amount of flexibility and analytics. It depends on the firm. So here we have the TPS for different operations, which goes into MES files, which goes into reports, and you have, in addition to dashboards that the managers will look at. So a sample MIS report is actually showing that we're selling 2 kinds of products, carpet cleaner and room freshener, in 4 different regions. This clearly, not clearly, it is the US example because the textbook for the classes. And then you see they're comparing actual versus planned sales. And interestingly, in the Midwest, they actually sold more than was planned, 6% more. Whereas in the Northeast, they sold 15% less than was planned for room freshener. The good news was in the South, where 19% was sold more than planned, so 5,600 versus 4,700 was predicted. And the bad news was in 2 places, Northeast and the West, where there was 7% and 6% less than expected. The point is, you can look at a management information system report and make some assessments and then say, oh, what can I do with the information if you're a good middle manager. Additional support system is in addition to the MIS, it supports the middle managers, but they help with non-routine decision making. So this MIS is routine, like you have so every single product and you look at the details. But the DSS is for non-routine decisions. So you want to say to yourself, what would happen if you decide to produce extra? If the sales is doubled, like right now, the people are making air across the world since there's not enough oxygen. What would happen if they to the production schedule if there's an increase in sales, and what would we make? I don't know. It seems to me that's very non-routine. Or people who made masks, clearly they have upped in their sales. There's a whole bunch of businesses that actually some have decreased and some have increased. Like I just paid for Nus for the Express today. I was expecting to be on the bus right now, giving you the lecture on the bus. It doesn't matter how I didn't get on the bus, but here I am right now, sitting down doing it on the bus. And the point is, Nus for the Express has to make some non-routine decisions based on the shutting down of their business. What is going to happen to their profits and their sales? I would think that it might be helpful for them to have a DSS to help them what is happening. Do they actually need to maintain their buses? Do they need to sell some buses based on reduced, I'm presuming there's reduced people going around the country because of the lockdowns and because of the stay-at-home things and the beaches and all of that. I'm only speculating, I don't have all the information. So if I had more information, then we need to know, say, 1 second, guys. Yeah, okay, let me just, share screen again. Where was I? Wasn't this? Yeah, so I think I was here from current slide. All right. Yes, so what time is it? Oh yeah, okay. Right, so the so we have the types of business information systems, and I was saying that often external information is used to support the software that is in the business. Obviously, the business is going to have everything about the business. There are different kinds of digital support systems that can be useful to the business. So, for example, you may have a DSS that is based on models. So, for example, in COVID-19, right now, the government of Jamaica, Ministry of Health, is actually using models to help to predict what's happening with increases in COVID cases before it actually happens. And there are a number of things that lead to that in that model. It includes things like how people are behaving, as well as a number of, it's actually a whole answer here, but not in a modeling group. So there are a whole bunch of things, some of them which are measurable and some which are estimated, and the data that they actually have that they can use to model the increase. And by the way, you don't have to be an expert to know right now that there's going to be a big increase in the number of cases based on data in Jamaica and across the world. We're at the beginning of our third wave, unfortunately. Public event. I'm wondering, what is this? What public events? Am I missing something? Or that was on long time? I don't know. I see that Mr. Sending Porter for public events, and I'm actually confused. At any rate, you can actually use ESS to model data, and executive support systems serve senior managers. They are for strategic issues, address non-routine decision making, form management information systems, decision support systems, and data from external places. And typically, because they're for executives, they use a lot of visual data to help them make decisions, because they tend, well, it depends on the situation, but a lot of executives are not as techy as, in fact, even if they're technical, they like to see things in visual form. So they tend to have a lot of visual interfaces to support decision making. So for example, here's a digital dashboard which shows return on investments, and this is for marketing. And in this particular example, we see here that email is the best return per dollar spent compared to television and radio. So based on this, online investments in marketing for this business are better than the traditional, because telephone, radio, and television are low. And then we can look at the rest of the details. So basically, and by the way, what I like about this screen is that I see that the Ministry of Health is also using digital dashboard. And usually when the medical officer of health shows demonstration, one of the last things she shows is a digital dashboard of where we are in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is what you should have looked at in your tutorial this week. And then there are different kinds of systems across the enterprise. There are supply chain management systems, customer relationship management systems, enterprise systems, and knowledge management systems. And that's what we're going to be focusing on for the rest of the lecture. So I'm going to be begging a favor of the class. So I'm going to stop this share at the moment, and I'm going to ask somebody, anybody, to kindly, let me just make sure I have done it already. I'm going to ask somebody in the class. Let me just find the, what should we do? 25. I'm asking somebody, where security? Can't even find it. More. One is not there. Oh, here, security. Right. So I'm going to ask anybody in the class to kindly, hopefully somebody here has already downloaded this slide. So I'm begging somebody to share their screen, because I am literally moving from one location to the next, and I'm going to give the rest of the lecture while I'm moving location, because of some big challenges I'm having. So the share screen is enabled. I really would hope that by now somebody in the class has downloaded the slide and is ready to share it with the class because anybody can share. So don't all do it all at once. Is this a big request, guys? I said nobody is jumping to my request. I mean, this is the same request in the class. I only had like about 12 people yesterday or no, Monday evening. And people are able to do it. I have a class with a big amount of people. One person, oh, here comes Daniel. I'm going to be like, that's, thank you, Daniel. You might want to press enable editing and press, just need to figure out.
Which slide were we on?
I am not sure. We were maybe about slide, I'm not sure. Maybe it was the first one on enterprise. Pass that.
Somebody down there.
Pass that.
I think it's 26.
It's yeah, pass that. Right there, the one before, I think. Because it was when we just started enterprise systems. So it would be the slide right before that. Next slide. Yeah, it's the next slide. So 26, he's right. Yes, can you still hear me? You guys are still hearing me?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
Yes, it's perfect.
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, we are
Yes.
hearing you.
Okay, because I was not hearing you. I guess it's me not it was me not it was me not doing something. I'm actually wondering if this is going to work properly, but it is what it is. I need to make sure I turn on what is on. All right. So let's go back to Zoom. I'm trying to look for I'm not finding it. This is hilarious. Guess I won't worry about it right now. Or I know where it is. Everybody up. Oh, you can't minimize. Oh, that's interesting. Well, let's see what's going to happen. All right, so let's go on. So enterprise applications systems, for those who are in the basic computing and majoring in enterprise systems, you might think that you know most everything that you need to know about enterprise systems. I don't know if you do or not, but one thing that is important for you to know is that enterprise applications are important in organizations because they essentially, what can we say? They are utilized to, can I say it right? They're utilized to, what am I saying? I'm trying to move and talk to you at the same time. They're utilized to integrate core parts of an organization. So those core parts would be the key parts. Now, some people would say enterprise resource planning system also includes what we're going to talk about in 2 seconds, which is
Oh, I'm talking and you guys not hearing me. Hi, you guys, you weren't hearing me. Hello?
No, sorry.
No, miss.
What I just realized I was talking to myself. I just realized that I'm there talking and I was muted. So I'm there talking my heart out and I'm muted. I'm there talking, I'm wondering why I was even saying next slide. So let me see what I was saying again, because I just realized I was talking and you guys weren't hearing. So let me say this again, sorry for that. I was saying that enterprise applications, there are 4 major types. And it's a little bit tricky because for one, what is known as number 1 has 2 names. So enterprise systems are also called enterprise resource planning systems. And the group of the 4 things there as a whole group are called enterprise application. Don't worry of your heads about why these terms are this way, but what's really important is that they're software for companies, otherwise called applications. And the most important one, if a firm is medium or large, to make things work well, is to have enterprise systems, otherwise known as enterprise resource planning systems. And what they do is they essentially automate the internal runnings of a firm so the data within the firm can flow easily. So can go to the next slide. Are you still here? Good. So an enterprise application has processes for the enterprise, and then there also are processes for supply chain as well as for customer management. Next slide. So we were talking just now that the enterprise systems, otherwise called ERP, integrates the key business processes across all the major areas of a business. It speeds communication if it's well designed. It tends to lead to good flexibility in terms of responding to customer requests, accuracy, etc. It enables managers to assemble good operations if done right. Next slide. So the supply chain management system, as you would expect, if you know what supply chain is just a phrase that means a company wants to buy from somebody else. That's called the suppliers. And supply chain is the link between the people who manufacture that supply and the business. And sometimes they're middlemen. That's the supply chain. So the supply chain systems ensure that the transfer of goods gets where you want it to go. And so a good supply chain management system, whether it's manual or automated, will have managed relationships between the suppliers, the purchases firms, distributors, division companies, any part of the system. It manages shared information in order to reduce the cost of inventory and the likes. You know, every company, you want to get things there on time and don't have too much inventory because that tends to cost money. And if it's done right, you can have relationships between organizations work well. Next slide. You have the customer relationship management systems, and they are systems.
Do you want to send to a straight account? Or do you,
there are systems that manage relationship with the customers. So they tend to look at everything to do with the customer. So it is all the business process with the customer. So that is everything to do at the beginning, sales and marketing, all the way to the service and the retention of the customers. So if you have excellent CRMs, they will optimize the revenue of the business because the customers buy and are happy and keep buying. So they're satisfied, they retain, as in they keep purchasing because they're happy with the company. Good CRMs figure out who are the most profitable customers in order to make sure that they keep as happy as possible. And clearly that all leads to increase sales and increase profits. Next slide. And then your knowledge management systems. This is probably the least important, but even yesterday I was talking to a physician in Greece. Please explain to me, why was I talking to a physician in Greece? Doesn't matter why. And she was actually saying to me, I don't get to what's in the notes, that like, oh, she didn't call it knowledge management system, she had another name for it. But she's basically saying that's a competing person that would everything to look at us for research for health because it's so important. But back to the story. If you can capture knowledge of employees so that if they leave or die or whatever, the businesses keep it on the track, that's very important. So in the information age, you actually want to think about how businesses can keep um, important knowledge available that they so that the businesses can have it. I remember the first time from my experience I saw clearly for knowledge management systems was when I was
Okay.
at working at UTech. There was a point where they decided that people who didn't have a diploma were not able to
All right, cool.
were not permitted to work in particular administrative functions, and they had warned people if they didn't get those, they upgrade their skills, they would be let off, and people didn't believe them. So when they were let off, they didn't do anything. They just left with the knowledge, and so they were in some departments. Literally, it was just disorganized. People didn't do anything to the data. It was just there in files, not organized, and so it took quite a while for things to sort out because literally there was nobody who knew where anything was because many things were manual. And so I remember there was a point when certain elements of the department I worked in computing was just so poor. So the point is, knowledge management systems help to sort those things out. And I actually been actually other experience, but that one's the easiest one to explain. And so not only you want to keep knowledge about the firm, and within the firm, you also want to have knowledge about what's going on outside. So you always want to know knowledge about the competitors. Next slide. Right. And then with information systems, there sometimes intranets and extranets are important. So you know, a firm often uses networks to share data within the company, and they're private. Extranets basically allow data to be shared with authorized vendors and suppliers, which helps with collaboration. Next slide. We can think of business through networks. And so the big concept is e-business. So e-commerce is a subset of e-business. So e-business is any kind of technology that facilitates business processes, which includes e-commerce. So e-commerce, there are many types. There's B2B, B2C, C2C. So B2C is where a business sells to the consumer. C2C is where the consumer sells to the consumer, like after PayPal. And there's government to consumer, which is e-government. But e-business is the big broad concept where everything that's on a network that a business needs can be facilitated in digital technology. Next slide. So because collaboration and teamwork is very important in the information age, we want to think about, can we have collaboration for common goals, common results, for products? Because in most instances, even if you're somebody who's alone, like me, you really find that you get a bigger bang for the buck when you work in teams rather than just as individuals. And some of the reasons that if you do that, you can get feedback from people, learn from each other, change the way that you work by getting better results, and essentially get much better. Next slide. So some of the things that's important for collaboration includes changing the nature of work, growth of professional work. Like for example, when you write software, if you write code well, you can still get feedback from colleagues saying this is how your code could be even better. You can change the organization of the firm. You can change the scope of the firm because if people give great ideas, the firm can become better. Clearly, with good collaboration, innovation works really well. And so we change the culture of work and business. Next slide. So there are more opportunities for social business, as in to use business to promote the business with social networking sites and even other kinds of social media. So that's everything from social networking sites, it's like things like Instagram and Facebook and the whole long list of social networking sites. But there are the social media. So everything from YouTube and WhatsApp and all of that can help to have conversations and information transparency that can lead to better decision making with employees, customers, and suppliers, if done well. Next slide. So some of the benefits for collaboration and teamwork include productivity, quality, innovation, customer service, and financial performance. Next slide. Next slide, please. So there are a number of systems that we can create for collaboration. And essentially, no matter what they are, you're looking at better collaboration capability and collaboration technology that leads to better quality performance, better firm performance. Next slide. So some of those tools include email and instant messaging, wikis, virtual worlds, and all the environments that exist for online collaboration, including virtual meetings, cloud collaboration, notes, social networking tools for enterprises and the like. And these things keep increasing of types all the time. Next slide. So there are different types of information systems depending on where they were talking about. Same time, based on either time or space. So we have same time, same place. So we have decision room, single display, groupware, etc., which is same time, same place for in person. Oh, what is all of this? Yeah. Same time, same place, collaboration systems. Then we have remote systems that are at the same time. So like now, that's what we're doing right now. So we're all in our classroom, basically doing this remotely, but I'm actually streaming on YouTube, which people will be able to watch after the fact. So there's all will be the we'll actually be able to use this class stream for different time for the same people. And so we have the same exact tool can be used for different time as well. And then we have the same place, different time, where people are actually are in team rooms and in different places, like and then you have situations where it's different places at different time. But I think we're all used to that. So you can use email, bulletin boards, asynchronous conferencing, calendars to essentially control working together, not at the same place and not at the same time. And there's software, there are different types of software that essentially facilitate teamwork, especially in COVID and post-COVID. Information assistance for teamwork and collaboration will become more and more important. And that's in my opinion, based on what everybody has been talking and writing about. Next slide. So you want to, if you want to think about buying or using collaborative tools, you want to ask yourself, what is the collaborative challenges of the firm that you're working for or own? What type of solutions are currently available? Analyze what are the costs and benefits, obviously. and evaluate if there are any security risks or any other, perhaps it's not here, organizational challenges. And then this is related to the organizational challenges. Consult the users to see will there be any implementations and training issues? Because basically, if you have people who are not tech savvy, if you have people who are adverse to implementation, all that needs to be taken into account. And then you need to select the candidate tools and evaluate the actual vendors to see which ones are going to be most effective. Next slide. So the information system department includes programmers, system analysts. So I think there may be one or two of you in the class who are not in the basic computing program. So I think everybody here knows what a programmer is. For those who haven't heard, a system analyst is a person who writes a specification for a software program that's typically followed. So the programmer follows the specs or the specifications that's written by the system analyst, right? And then there are some managers. So if the firm is big enough, you actually have the people who manage the analysts and the programmers. And then in a US environment, well, in addition to those, you have a whole lot of people. So you could have a facility manager for this, for the servers and other computer equipment, a network manager, a database specialist, or more, several of them. People who manage the day-to-day computer operation, data entry staff, and there can be many other type of information system personnel. And then you're going to have senior managers and then users. So senior managers include the chief information officer, the chief knowledge officer, the chief security officer, and others depending on the firm. Next slide. So the information system services in a company include the computer services, the network services, the data management services, the application software services, the physical facilities management services, and various kinds of IT management standards, educational and research and development services, depending on the scope and size of the organization. Next slide. And that's it. So any questions or concerns? So for those who haven't done so as yet, there is, I really should have changed. What I should have, what I did not do. I should have literally changed this. That's gonna be interesting. I should have changed this. I should have changed myself to be the host, because actually the other location I was at is still the host. Anyway, anybody has any questions? Anybody still there? I take it there are no questions. Well, I'm encouraging everybody to stay safe, if at all possible. Consider taking a vaccine, because everybody needs to be wearing masks, physical distancing, following proper hygiene. And this is against your religion. Taking a vaccine. Even since today, I saw a student sending me an email that they're having severe symptoms of COVID. Would I please excuse them for class, and they're hoping to come back soon. But I wrote back an email, please get well soon, guys. I want everybody to be still alive at the end. Stay safe.